Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Way podcast. It's the morning after a pretty shambolic 3-0 defeat away at Brighton. We didn't record straight after the game, felt like it made a bit more sense to let it breathe a little bit. Personally speaking, there's nothing that I would have said last night that I'm not prepared to say now. Nothing's changed, just as gutted now as I was last night. Don't know if it's the same for the other lads or not, but we'll find out. Joined this morning by Ian Brown and Paul Natton. So, Paul, I know you wanted to come on last week. You were frustrated at the negativity on it, and you would have liked to have, put a little bit more of an upbeat take on it. So, the floor's yours. Go for
it. you stitch up, mate. I think there's absolutely nothing positive to say this week. I think I'll just go. My view is still that medium term, I'm not too concerned. I just think with everything the Klopp's achieved over the last few years, absolutely delivered the very pinnacle of what's achievable in sport from a starting point of absolutely nowhere. There's no doubt in my mind that Klopp definitely has the capacity to go again. And also that there are lots of things in place which are still fundamentally sound or even brilliant, lots of players and systems and structures and all sorts of things. So really, in that sense, I'm not particularly concerned about moving beyond this season, with the caveat that we obviously got some serious work to do in the summer. However, in terms of this season, it's disastrous. It's really, really, really bad. Yesterday, we seem to spend every pod talking about our memories, Dave, but I don't really have like a mental list of all the worst performances in my head. I tend to have impressions of just I don't link them with particular games or opponents. I just have impressions of how we've played, and I haven't got anything worse in my mind than yesterday. I feel the players quite clearly are mentally now gone. I think that the physical travails that we talked about earlier in the season quite patently have been there, have contributed to this, but it's all spilling over now, and it's one thing's fallen into another. They look like they're second guessing themselves and second guessing each other all over the pitch. Half-hearted in tackles, putting too much on passes or under hitting passes. Not sure when to press, all of that, yeah. And the despondency afterwards was quite concerning, really. I thought, fair play to Trent. Still, he's not one of the absolute senior pros in there. He's obviously very experienced, but local lad, quite prepared to be interviewed afterwards. And Trent looked absolutely gutted and worried. I think, and that sort of chimed with what Klopp was saying as well. Klopp certainly said it's the worst performance of his career, not just Liverpool. So things are very, very concerning. I think they're clearly scrambling around behind the scenes to try and find some sort of solution. We all know about how difficult it is to change tactics and change the way a team that's as drilled as ours is, to change the way we play in the middle of a season. And that's when if you're playing, one game a week. Now, I know we've had a fair bit of time since the last game, but, across the season, drilling changes in this team tactically is not something that just happens with a week's training. But, the formation yesterday it just seemed to change about 4 times. There was times where they looked like a diamond. There was times where it looked like 4-4-2, but there were gaps. The press wasn't right. The players didn't seem to understand what they were supposed to be doing. And Brighton, we know that Brighton are a really, really well-coached team, but Brighton, like a succession of other teams this season, seem to be just rolling all over us, doing what we've always done, which is to press really well and effectively and to play through us. I'm very concerned, and the injuries are just absolutely exacerbating things. I'm not really sure where we're going to get a break from, to be honest. And if we're not going to go to the transfer market, the comments got made in the week, going on about, the money question again. If we've got players who are injured, where does that leave us? Well, Klopp's being disingenuous there, I think. He's quite clearly just trying to shut down that side of things. Don't know whether he's towing a party line, whether he's trying to protect the players that he's got. There will be some sort of rationale behind Klopp absolutely shutting that down as vociferously as he did. But he's being disingenuous in saying that there's no rationale to bringing players in. Now, there absolutely is. The squad needs a boost. We brought a player in terms of Gakpo in the forward line because we were desperate. We clearly weren't going to do that without all those injuries. The injuries since then up front have got worse, but he's come into a situation where, he hasn't got he looks bewildered. Yeah. We know how long it takes players to get drilled into our way of playing, and he's come in, in the first half yesterday. And I just feel that we need an injection of fresh blood if we've got any hope of recovering anything from this season. In terms of what a recovery this season looks like, I really don't know. Find it very, very hard to predict. I mean, one of the things I would say is that none of us predicted the recovery in the full COVID season where we ended up finishing third. I still stand by what I've said consistently, that it's a bizarre season. There's loads of clubs having mad seasons, some of them having bizarrely positive ones. Look at the top 6, top 7 now. You've got Brentford, you've got Fulham, Brighton are up there. You've got Tottenham are having a really wobbly season, and yet they're still above us. The wheels have come off Chelsea. Arsenal are punching massively above their weight. West Ham somehow plummeted to the other end of the table. There are mad things going on.
City.
And we're only... City, yeah, absolutely.
Do you know the only constant that you can rely on is Everton being shit?
Absolutely right. So we're still not quite halfway through the season. We've got another game to go before we played half the league campaign. So, if you were to ask me to bet on us having a big recovery, I wouldn't bet on it at all. I don't think it's likely. But then I had no conception that we would finish third in the COVID season when Klopp sort of pulled a rabbit out of a hat then. So who knows what's possible. But standing here right now, looking at the season now, we're in serious trouble for this campaign. It's a proper worry. And I just don't know how we're going to pull it around. And more to the point, I'm not sure that the coaching team know either. And I think it needs something fresh. And that's, to me, why I think they've got to go to the transfer market. That said, we know the way the club is about signings, and I just absolutely do not believe that there's no money. So for all the ranting and raving on social media about FSG, the money is absolutely there. There's definitely big money available. But what it'll be with them is that they don't want to overpay, or they don't want to buy the wrong player. And my view is that if they want to recover anything from this season, they need to definitely do something now, regardless of what the normal policy is, because I think we're in trouble.
The only thing with that, Paul, I think there's another possibility. I'd say it's a probability, actually. It's not that the money's not there. The money's earmarked for what they want to do in the summer, and they're not prepared to compromise on that by doing something now, even though it's clear that we've got to do something if we want to salvage this season. It feels to me like they're prepared to sacrifice that. I think that
makes sense, Dave. All I would say is that that definitely makes sense. All I would say is two things to that. One, could a poor season this season compromise what we want to do in the summer? I mean, they clearly feel Klopp feels confident that will not be the case, and then he also throws in that whole line about, well, if the player won't come to us because we miss out one season, then I don't want him. I think that's what my dad would have called cutting your nose off to spite your face. And the other thing as well is that if you think you've got a deal lined up for the summer, and I'm pretty sure that they will be feeling confident about the players that they want in the way they usually are. There'll be arrangements in place, nothing nailed down or signed, but they'll have agreements in place with agents and with players, and they'll have had discussions with clubs. If they're really confident about that, then why not go hard now and say, listen, let's do it. Let's do it right now. We'll pay you a bit more. I mean, Dortmund, for example, 6th at the moment, not having a good season at all. Yeah, the Champions League is still to play for, but Dortmund's whole policy is about selling. So there is a point at which Dortmund would sell. Look, I mean, all of that speculation and there's getting into the specifics of individual players, I suppose, in some senses is pointless and unknowable. All I would say is if there's ever a time for me to change the policy and to go outside the policy and take a risk, it's right now, because other clubs are doing it. Yeah. I'm not for 1 second saying that we should be modelling ourselves on Chelsea, but when they're throwing all that money around, some of that money's going to hit, and it's also distorting the market as well. That's going to probably make the fees that we're going to want to pay for players even harder to achieve, because Chelsea is throwing good money after bad. So I feel that we have got to do something. We need at least one midfielder in for me. At least
I'm not
one
sure
right
it changes anything though. I'm usually the first person to be like, yeah, go and make some signings. But
do you not think it would change the mood a bit though, mate?
Maybe sure. Well, as Gakpo though, Gakpo's come in and
player.
We've fallen off a cliff. And I know he's only had 2 games, but there's been no boost from Gakpo, and that's nothing to do with him. Like, you know, I don't know what he's like as a player. It's early days, God knows. But there's been no boost from him. Everything's fundamentally broken. I think we've gone beyond the point where you can go and get a couple of signings and suddenly things will improve a bit. I've written this season off. It's gone. Completely gone. You don't fix this. When Klopp's coming out with comments after the game saying, did the players look like they understood what I wanted them to do? That's a fundamental problem. That doesn't mean I'll just go and get this player there, I'll get that player there. So I'm almost thinking, are they wondering where's this team going to be in the summer in terms of what shape are they going to play? Because we're in a situation this season where we're scratching around trying to find the shape. And when you're doing that, you know you're fucked. Like, it's gone. So yesterday, he's tried a different shape anyway. You had Thiago almost playing in the hole, going forward. And every time Thiago went to try and get the ball, they just popped it round him and then he was out the game. And then suddenly, it sounds good that you've got 2 holding players, but if the 3 who were at the top plus the attacking midfielder go and they all get out the game, then suddenly you're fucked anyway. So I don't see how this is fixable in the short term. And I agree with a lot of what you said there, Paul, but I am worried medium term. And even long term, I am worried because when you're seeing basics going the way they did yesterday, there's like red flags going off all over the place because you can have a bad run of games. Like, even if you look at the Brentford game, we didn't like it, did we? But we were on the front foot. We were camped in their half. We didn't use the ball very well. That can happen. That's football. But yesterday can't happen to a club like us. Like, they battered us, like 3-0 flattered us. If you'd have got a neutral in and you'd have said one of these is one of the biggest clubs in the world who've won everything in the last few years, the other is a club who spend a lot of time in the lower leagues and are happy to get into the Premier League, and if they're pushing for Europe, then that's amazing for them. Which team's which?
On a starting 11 that cost 34 million. Exactly.
Like, this goes way beyond just a couple of little signings and little tweaks here and there. Like you touched on it before, Paul. Like, the coaching staff don't even know at this point what's going wrong. I don't think they've got all these people who get paid to do all this analysis and everything, and I think I think they're in panic mode behind the scenes, wondering what is going on here, trying all kinds of different things to fix it, and there's no sign whatsoever that it's getting fixed. I was almost lost for words yesterday in what I was watching. I burst out laughing at one point. Do you know what I mean? Because it was either that or it was
it Ox's header?
At the telly. Oh, I could name a few different things that he did. I mean, Jesus Christ. But honestly, like, I got angry. Like, I don't tend to get angry watching Liverpool. I'm quite philosophical about the football. You know what I mean? You have good spells, you have bad spells. Football works in cycles. We know that, don't we? And we all knew, we were saying on this pod, that we need to enjoy this while it's happening, because at some point it's going to go the other way. But I don't think any of us thought it'd go the way it's gone. Like, not this far, not this.
I don't think the club did either, did they?
No, absolutely not.
The club didn't either.
I'm in panic mode as a fan. Yeah, I'm even thinking about Chelsea are crap, but next week I can't see us beating anyone at the moment. Everton have beat us at the minute.
I said the same thing in the chat. I don't think we'd beat Everton if we were playing them next. The way we are, I don't think we'd even beat Everton. They just set up defensively, and we wouldn't break them down. Because you know what, I think, going back to what you said there, Brownie, me and Paul were chatting before we came on, and I said something similar there. Like, the performances we've had lately, so let's say, forget the Villa game, that was all right. Since then, so we had Leicester. I think we'd all say, that was shit. Brentford, yeah, that was shit. Wolves, that was shit. And they were all shit performances by our standards. And I'd say that they were worrying performances to some extent. Yesterday wasn't worrying. Yesterday was fucking disturbing. Yesterday was a whole other level to those other so-called shit performances that we've had. In all of those games, we were in the game, we had a lot of the ball, it just wasn't quite clicking up front, but you could see what we were doing was it was like a bad version of us. It was like, you'd see, that's what we normally do, but it's not working. It's not working the way we want it to. It's a bad version of us. I don't know what that was yesterday. That was not us in any way, shape or form. It was absolutely fucking woeful in every single area of the pitch. There's players are not able to complete fucking 10-yard passes. You've got players jumping out of tackles. I mean, at one point, Ox had an 80-20 tackle that he jumped out of. Yeah. And I looked at that and I'm like, in the NFL, that's what they call a business decision. When a player whose contract's up at the end of the season, he's a free agent, and he's like, oh, no, I want no part of that. That was Ox there. Then there was the fucking woeful header as well, which was just staggeringly bad. But forget Ox. Ox is like the least of the worries.
Yeah.
When you've got
Joel,
when you've got the
Joel?
good players doing shit like that as well.
Robbo on the third.
I know. The whole lot was just, the whole performance was fucking scandalous. It was like, some of it is on Klopp because he said himself about he changed like the way we wanted to play. So not just like what we'd see like the system that we were playing. Like, to me, it looked like we were playing like a diamond with Thiago at the tip of it. It's not so much like when you draw out the shape on paper. That's not what the change is. The change is like, when you do that, then somebody's pressing duties change, and he's got to be on like a different area of the pitch when we haven't got the ball. All stuff that we wouldn't know because we're not in on like the tactical sessions where they're talking through all of this. So a lot of stuff is like things that we wouldn't really pick up on anyway. But whatever it was that he was telling them to do, and he said himself, they didn't get it. They didn't understand. Now, you can say that's maybe they've stopped listening to the coaching staff. I think that there may be something in that. Not so much that they can't be arsed listening, but after a while, when it's the same voices over and over, you do naturally just become a little bit immune to it, if you like. So partly that. But a lot of what went wrong yesterday wasn't just a result of that. I mean, that doesn't excuse players. Like, there was a little passage of play at one point where Fabinho played the ball back, I think it was to Canate, and it was like a 10-yard pass, and he played it like 3 yards left of him. So Canate has to go to his left, get it on his left foot, and then Canate tries to play it square to Matip, and he plays it behind him. And this is happening, and then Brighton are just pushing right up, pressing us, and I'm like, that's so fucking shit. I mean, in training, all they do is fucking rondos, and you can't play a 10-yard pass to a teammate.
It's psychological, isn't it? It's psychological.
Yeah, it is.
But that's stuff that, like, that's not tactical, and that's not to do with them not having legs. There's so much more to it than that now. Yeah. It's not just about, we haven't got legs in midfield. That's like just the lowest of low-hanging fruit now when people are talking about, look, it's fucking Henderson, he can't run anymore. It's Fabinho, he's shit. These are like relevant factors that I'm not dismissing. And if
this has grown from that, hasn't it? This has grown from that.
Yeah, but
this has come from that.
It's also too easy to just say,
it's becoming this bandwagon that's rolling.
Fix that midfield and it's fat. No, there's way more than that. And even stuff that's not even on the pitch. Even stuff like the fucking injuries to players, and players coming back and then going out with the same injury again. Like Diaz comes back and then it's the exact same injury he goes out with. Well,
and Klopp having little pops to the medical team as well in the press.
Klopp's press conference on Friday, and he got asked about Bobby, and he used the word experts, and he used it, and I thought, that's a bit weird. Why would you not be saying like the medical people or the sports science? And he went, the experts told me like 10 to 12 days for Bobby, and now he's not even close. The good news about that was I didn't dream those quotes from Bobby. Remember when I wasn't sure? I was doubting myself. No, he did actually say that. I'll be back for Brentford. So that's the good news. But the bad news is he's not been seen since. And it's the same injury. So this injury that was supposedly going to keep him out for probably 10 days. He said he's not close. So he's not even close to coming back. So
I'm
stuff like
that's
happening.
For Bobby as well, mate, by the way. Like, for 2 years I'd have sold him, and now I'm like, at least he goes after the ball and he's got a chance of winning it back.
Well, that's another
yesterday
issue.
Was just a disgrace. That press yesterday was an absolute... They were late to everything, and you could see it within about 90 seconds. They went, like, 4 of them went, but they went like half-hearted. Like, they either didn't want to do it, or they didn't understand if they should have been doing it. And the thing about when you press is you have to commit, though. Like, you have to go. When you've made the decision, you go. But we were like, should I or shouldn't I? Or what about this and what about that? No, we don't do that. That's not what we do. And that, to me, was what was sending out those like worrying signals that there's something fundamentally wrong when you...
I thought they were all too far away from each other. They just weren't near enough to each other as well in that press. You're absolutely right, Brownie, what you were saying. But there was no compactness about the team at times. Big gaps. A player picking up the ball and like... an opponent picking up the ball, and like every single one of our midfielders is 10 yards from him.
Yeah,
it's just and then gaps between the midfield and the centre. The second goal, when that ball breaks, it breaks into a gap between the midfield and the defence, and he's basically at the centre of a big sort of 12, 15 yard circle, but absolutely unmarked. It's just it's a million things. They're just
this
so
is one of them
away.
games as well, though, where you can't even look at it and let's analyse the goals individually. We could have conceded 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
They let us off the hook so many times where I was just thinking they're going to score here.
I also think they
kept
eased
messing
off.
about.
I think the last half an hour they just kind of eased off a bit.
Yeah, the game was won, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that's what we normally do.
I know, but going back to the midfield and the press and everything else, I also think people are overlooking the fact that the forwards aren't doing it. Off the ball, we are just nowhere near what we were off the ball, and not necessarily because players can't be arsed or anything like that, but you're replacing. It was always the same three, wasn't it? We had the same front three. They played every game. They all knew what they were doing. Everyone knew how to play with each other, where they all needed to be. And now you're changing it and you're bringing in players. And we always think with the forwards, you're bringing him in and he's great at this and he's great at that. And you think what they can do with the ball and scoring goals. And what we're getting without the ball from these players, it's not the same as what we had before. So then that impacts on what goes on behind them, which is the midfield, who are no longer at the level that they were. Maybe they wouldn't be anywhere near as bad if they had the same kind of pressing from the three players in front of them. We don't know. Because last year we weren't that bad. Whatever you say about these midfield players now, last year we nearly won everything with them. So even if you can say they were starting to slide or whatever, yeah, maybe so. But look at what we did last season and look how bad it's gone now. It's not just a case of, look, the midfielders can't run. It's easy to say that. And there is, and I'm not even saying that that's not true. It's clearly that is an issue. But it's more than that. We're not off the ball. We're just shit. So we're not pressing high up the pitch. We're not winning the ball. You've seen that stat that came out this week. We've gone from number 1 to number 11 in winning the ball in the final third. Well, that's, a lot of that's on the forwards. And Sadio in particular, Sadio not being here, he was really good at that. So we're missing Sadio, not for... That's something we always say, you don't want to say, Sadio's gone, that's the problem, because it's not. You're replacing Sadio with Diaz, and you're not losing out too much attacking-wise. I'm not saying Diaz is exactly at Sadio's level. He wasn't giving us the same goals. But you would have liked to have thought, if he hadn't got injured, the way Diaz was playing, we might be on about 10, 12 goals at this point, the way he was playing. It's not just that, though. It's it's off the ball, it's the press, and... Again, I'm not saying that these players are not trying. Diaz puts a shift in at every game. It's doing it in the right areas and being smart and knowing what you're doing. And Sadio was great at that. Sadio was great at it.
We've seen, haven't we, consistently under Klopp, that it takes players in all sorts of positions time to understand it. Think about how he made Robbo wait. Think about how he made Fabinho wait before he got in the team. Ox didn't establish himself straight away, and then obviously Ox got injured and came out. But if you think about, just go through the players who've played quite a bit this season, most of them haven't even had a year under this, and certainly haven't had a run of games. Think of Harvey, the position that he's playing, Bajetic, however you pronounce his name, Carvalho, Diaz, when he was fit, barely established himself in terms of the press. Nunez hasn't. Gakpo just arrived. There's loads and loads and loads of players who certainly had nothing like what I think Klopp would call optimal time to develop and understand how we play. And if you've got lots and lots of change each week and different players coming in, none of whom fully understand it, you think how absolutely brilliantly drilled we were at our very best going back 3-4 years, go back to the title season, where it was just like this finely tuned machine where everybody knew what to do and when. We're so far away from that now. And I just think that's understandable. I think we take for granted that this really intricate, difficult thing that we did for so many years is just easy to replicate and easy to bring back. It took a long time to establish that way of playing, and players took years, some of them, to get to the peak. Now there's been a lot of change forced on us. Some of the change should have come sooner and should have been eased in. We're still seeing that now. We were too slow to rejuvenate the midfield. And what we've got now is lots and lots of players who are coming in, and we're in, as we said, we're in crisis mode. And that way of playing needs to be drilled. You can see it in all these other clubs who play a fraction of the games that we play. They're all really well coached. They've got these really good recruitment systems, and they bring in players for those systems. And they still take time to establish themselves when they've got far longer on the training pitch. So I think at the level that football coaching and tactics are at now, I think it's inevitable when you've got that much sort of unforced change or forced change on us, then we're going to struggle to to get close to what we need to be. Definitely, I think it's glaring in your points about the forwards. The press from the forwards is just pretty much non-existent, or when it's happening, it's very, very inconsistent.
It's not an organised press, I think, is the fairest way to say it. It's not that like these players are not working
They're
hard.
Not lazy. It's not laziness.
It's not that. It's not that at all. I mean,
or attitude. It's not.
You look at Darwin. You'll see Darwin like sprinting like 60 yards back to his own corner flag to defend. So it's not a case of them not wanting to do it. It's more the organisation of it and like the cohesion of the unit.
Definitely.
But that's what I'm saying about like when everyone's going on about like the midfield this, the midfield that. It's more than that, it is. It's like it's just everything, and there's reasons for it. I don't think there's reasons for everything. I think some of the things you've got to be scratching your head and going, what the fuck? But it's so many things are contributing to it, and it just feels like everything's going wrong at once, and we're just in this tailspin. And up until this weekend, I've always said I'm not worried about top four. We'll get top four because the other teams up there, not so much the top three. I think, United look like they're not going to fall off. They're decent. They're not great, but they're decent.
But they've had some big wins, haven't they, which will really galvanise them now as well.
Even like, they were lucky
9
to beat
wins
City,
on their own.
but bottom line is they won.
They won, so exactly.
They're not going to fall away.
They're confident to be right up.
There's one place in the top four that you're going for, really. You're hoping to overtake Newcastle. And up until now, I was confident that we'd put a run together and, Newcastle will revert to the mean because they're punching well above the weight at the moment. But after that yesterday, I'm looking at it going, we're getting worse. We're not getting better. There's no signs of improvement or things you can hang your hat on and go, well, at least we're doing this well. So if we can just maybe fix this part of things, we've got something going. We've got nothing going because we're so bad defensively now. And again, I'm not saying back four when I'm talking about defensively. I'm talking about like the team defending, giving up chances. It's the collective. And I'd say probably only Leeds are worse than us defensively right now. Leeds, and with Leeds, it's more just individual mistakes that they keep doing every game. Leeds are playing well. They look like a good team, well coached, but they just keep giving away stupid goals. With us, it's not so much that we're giving away stupid goals. We're just giving up loads of chances. Teams are just creating against us so easily. So that's a big problem. But just as big a problem now is like we've started to look shit at the other end. Now, there's mitigating circumstances because so many forwards are out injured. So you have got that as like an excuse to some extent. But, I mean, if we're not looking good going forward and we know how bad we've been defensively, what can you rely on? We're just hoping that the forwards come back from injury and we'll score enough goals to overcome like the weakness that we've got defensively. And they're not back anytime soon. So that's the concern for me. Is like we're going to be too far back by the time, we do get Diaz back and Jota back, and plus the fact, who knows whether they'll get injured again when they come back. You can't rely on them anymore. We don't know what's going on with all of that. So, yeah, I'm officially now saying I don't think we'll get top four.
No chance.
Yesterday was the turning point for me, and again, it comes down to how bad it was. It's not like all those other bad games that we've had. They didn't shake me confidence that much. It's like, okay, yeah, that's shit, but we can get better. We just need to improve in certain areas and we'd be all right. Yesterday was an absolute car crash on every level. There was nothing worked, nothing at all. Everything was shit. The only player who was remotely acceptable for me was Konate, who in the first half especially, Konate was just putting out fires everywhere, right across the back line. I mean, he's playing like the left-sided centre-back. How many times did we see him at fucking right-back? Because that Matomo had just fucking flown past Trent and Matip, and you've got Konate having to come across all the way to that side of the pitch. He was putting out fires everywhere, and then he couldn't do it for 90 minutes. So the second half, there's only so much one defender can do. Second half was just shambolic. We gave away a terrible goal right after half time. After we should have, we get in at 0-0 by some miracle. We should have been in that dressing room going, fucking hell, lads, how have we gotten away with that? Let's take advantage of this year because we should be 2 or 3-0 down there and somehow we've got in on level terms. Let's get our shit together, play our way into the game a bit, and even if we come away with a point, okay, so be it, but, let's just try and play our way into the game and stem the flow. And instead, we went out and within 2 minutes, we'd fucking conceded. And even after changing the formation, it was no better. When we went back to 4-3-3, it was no better. It was still shit.
You can subscribe to the Liverpool Way podcast on all the major platforms, whether it's Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon or Podbean. Just search for the Liverpool Way, leave us a review and hit subscribe to automatically receive all new episodes. You can also head to liverpoolway.co.uk and grab a TLW season ticket for just £3 a month. There's tons of exclusive content, including match reports from every Liverpool game, weekly Premier League roundups, the TLW diary, and access to the members-only forum. Lastly, you can follow us on social media at The Liverpool Way on Twitter and at The Liverpool Way TLW on Instagram and Facebook.
That was another Woody for me as well. Like, so Klopp's adjustments at half-time used to work on a regular basis. Like, they used to show them clips, didn't they, on certain things and say, this is what you're doing wrong. We can see it. This is how you fix
it's only
it.
15 minutes till Brownie.
I know,
you couldn't have shown clips of that first half.
Well, you wouldn't want to show any clips because
No.
you'd have just been showing them being shit. So that wouldn't have worked
God.
anyway. But we used to be able to fix things, didn't we? And you could clearly see something had changed. But it went worse, didn't it? So again,
I mean,
that's
our
a red flag for me.
alarm is 4 subs coming on at once, though, Brownie, and look at who comes on as well, and that's what we're asking to change the game. We've got like a child.
We were better.
We've got an actual. We've got an
a
actual
little bit.
child. We've got a lad who was the great prodigy, and now half the fan base is saying, "Oh, he's not all that." And we've got a guy who's going on a free transfer at the end of the season. He's been disappointing anyway. And I can't even remember who the other person was.
Sleepy Joe.
Can we talk about Joe's first involvement in the game, by the way? Because I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Was it when he
that ball
turned
went
his
up to
back
him? Yeah, and then he turned away.
He just
and
flew
ended
in
up
and went about 5 yards past the ball.
Oh, actually, yeah.
No, that was
the
later
second
on,
one,
Brownie.
I mean. Yeah, later on, yeah.
No, the
that
second
other
one was when Danny Welbeck lobbed it over his head and scored. I think
Jesus.
after that was when he starts tracking the runner and doesn't look at the ball at
Yeah.
all.
And
And
then
the
he ends
ball's
up-
played through and it's
Yeah.
like, it hits him, doesn't it? And it just hits him on the heels.
Yeah, and then he turns around and then suddenly the lad's gone the other way. Then he turns the other way and he just starts twisting them all over the place and you're like, Joe, just
He's
get yourself
so
off that.
focused on the runner, he wasn't even looking at the ball.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to be running with the player, but glancing over your shoulder to see where the ball is. He
just
did
looked-
not look at the ball at any point.
If Harry Maguire did that, we'd
I
be
know.
dining out on it, wouldn't we, for months, and rightly
But
so.
that's not something that he would have done previously, and that's
No,
again,
absolutely.
that's like the
Another
worrying
sign.
thing.
Exactly.
There's so many of these things which are just inexplicable. You're seeing, like, because Joe Gomez is not shit. Joe Gomez is a fucking really good player,
He is.
and you're
What
looking
about
at him
Robbo
and you're
not
like, what's-
defending a throw-in? Robbo just not making a challenge for a throw-in, which leads to a goal. What about Joel giving the ball
Yeah,
away
I know.
twice? I mean,
I know.
Joel with mad passes for 2 of the goals. One just an aimless punt forward, and the other one just giving away. I mean, it's just crazy.
That's
you
what I
know,
mean.
really,
Inexplicable
really
stuff
well
happening.
established, world-class players doing mad, out-of-character things. And for all the crap that you read on social media, it's not because they're lazy. It's not because they can't be bothered. It's because it's right in their heads. It's right in their heads, and they're second-guessing themselves. They don't know what to do. That the whole cohesion of the team has gone. You know, it's worrying. I just want to come back again, Dave, to the point you were making about top 4 is definitely gone. I mean, my view is almost
I didn't say
certainly.
definitely. I said I don't think we'll do it.
Sorry, I'm not trying to like nail
No,
you.
I
I'm
agree
saying
with
definitely.
I agree with your point before that, you know, the COVID season we reeled off like 10 wins out of 11
and I
or
suppose,
something.
but if you're asking me to bet now, I would say that we're not going to get top 4.
Same.
It doesn't look like it at all. But all I would say is I just can't get away from, and I'm thinking more about other clubs as much as us. I can't get away from the fact that it's just a mad season, and the Klopp. The other thing to say is Klopp is Klopp. I take on board everything that we've said about how it looks disjointed. The coaches, I made the point the coaches don't look like they know what they're doing at the moment. But this is Jurgen Klopp. And if anybody can get inside their heads and turn them collectively, it'll be him. How he does it, I don't know. I don't think even he knows at the moment.
He doesn't.
But I think
You can
I
tell.
wouldn't. Yeah, I would not rule out miracles simply because it's Klopp. But it's as bad as it could be at this stage. Definitely, I can't envisage how we could come out of a game just prior to the midpoint of the season and feel worse than we feel at the moment based on what we've seen on the pitch. It's very, very worrying.
But I think, though, one game, I'm not saying changes everything, but one good performance and good win does start the comeback, and it gets,
definitely.
It gets you.
But we don't look like that.
No, we
at the
don't
moment.
look like we've got that
anywhere
in
near.
us at the moment, but that's what it takes. Is like you have that
Yeah.
performance, like okay, we
I'm
can
not buying
build on that. But I don't see where that's coming from, especially because the problems with the forwards.
Well, you know, I think you two. I don't know whether you said it. Did you say it on the pod, or did we say it just before we started recording? I mean, we will get onto Chelsea, but saying that we don't look like we can beat anybody. Well, Chelsea are a mess. They're coming to Anfield next week. Maybe it will be one of them where the ground gets really up for it and they feed off us. Who knows? At the moment, I wouldn't bet on it. At the moment, I think, I can't see where a win's coming from. But maybe that could be a turning point, a big result against Chelsea at Anfield.
I think we need the crowd, don't we? Like, I know that can be overstated sometimes, but we definitely need the crowd next week.
And we haven't had the crowd all season, have we? The crowd has been crap all season.
We need Darwin back.
Yeah, we do. But I'm not buying this, what you said there, what you're selling, Dave, about one good performance, then it can all...
I'm not saying we'd get back to what we were.
No, not to where we were, but it's somewhere to start from, yeah. But we are now. We're like a boxer who used to have a boss chin, and then he got knocked out, and then his promoter then starts putting him in these other fights against these little bums and going, don't worry, we'll build you back up again. The moment he goes in against somebody who's got half a dig, he gets knocked out again. And he hasn't got a clue. Like, I used to take those punches and not...
That's fine,
and it was fine.
Stick us in with some bums. Let us beat the bums, because there's plenty of bums in the Premier League, and we've got to do that to get back.
Yeah, but I think we're the biggest bum. That's the problem at the minute.
But then you stick us in with a heavy hitter, we're going to get knocked out. Okay. But the problem is like the bums are beating us.
Yeah, exactly. We've got to start. That's the point. You lose that air of invincibility, and then everything goes.
That's gone. Yeah, that's gone.
Let's not forget, we've still got. Yes, their form is not there. There are world-class players in that squad, and not just one or two of them. So yes, we're in a really, really bad moment, but you don't stop being world-class at halfway point of the season, and it's gone forever. These are players with massive mentalities, incredible achievements, incredible talent. And it can turn around.
I have no doubt we'll put in some good performances. We'll get some good results between now and the end of the season. I have no doubt about it. But it's not going to be anywhere near as consistent enough as it will need to be to get us back to even top four. What are we, 7 points behind now? I know we've just spoken about who are the teams that we're chasing, but I don't see how we're going to get any level. 7. I don't see how we're going to get any level of consistency to be able to do that. Now, going back to the point about Klopp, though, I have no doubt that he's the man to fix it. All that we need is a full reset and a full pre-season and to go again. Like they need to just start again. And the problem is, midway through the season, you can't do that. It's not possible.
Well, I would say if he's Jurgen Klopp and he's the great manager we think he is, it's not good enough to wait till the summer. And
I'm saying that as a fan. I don't want him to be thinking that.
I also think that I think he has got the ability to turn things, because we've seen him do it before. Whether he'll be able to or not, I don't know, because sometimes events can just run away from even the best. And certainly that's happened the first half of the season. The key now is can he galvanise what's left and recover something from this season? And I certainly, if anyone can do it, he can.
Anyone looking forward to the Real Madrid games at this point?
No, but you know what? I was thinking about this yesterday. When we get beat by Real Madrid, which is now looking extremely likely, do not for 1 second try to fucking pin it on me. Because I wanted Real Madrid. I'm not taking it. No, it's not. It's not on me. And I'll tell you why it's not on me. I'll tell you why this is not on me. We could have Rangers in the next round, and there's a good chance we'd get beat. So it's nothing to do with me calling out Real Madrid and saying I want to get Real Madrid. It wouldn't matter who we were playing at this point. We're playing so badly. Any team in the Champions League would be capable of beating us right now the way we're playing. So if Real Madrid beat us, and who knows, we might get some form back before then. We'll wait and see. But right now, it's not looking good whatsoever. But I am not taking the fall for this one, because there's no way that this is a result of me saying, I don't want Real Madrid. Also, let's remember the context. I wanted Real Madrid because I'd rather play them now than later on in the tournament. Let's just put that out there.
I actually think it's all of this is down to you. I reckon maybe people heard that bravado.
Everything.
They just got sucked into it.
The results, it's all on you, Dave.
So Kloppo's looking at formations, and we're talking about transfers and all this kind of stuff, and, all along it's just Dave, isn't it? That's where he needs to look at. We need to get on the blower to them.
That's it.
Not having this. This is well harsh. But I'm not looking forward to Real Madrid, to go back to your original question. No, I'm not
looking forward to the derby. Never mind Real Madrid.
Do you know what? I'm not looking forward to any game that Darwin isn't playing in. And I was half joking when I've been saying this all season, but now I'm fully on board the fact that when Darwin's not playing, I don't really want to watch us. There's nothing there that makes me want to watch us. It's depressing. At least when he's there, something's going to happen, good or bad. There's something that you're going to be like excited by, or you take him out and what's left? It's fucking dismal.
Is true.
It's dismal.
Yeah, that is true.
And I'm looking at Mo, and Mo's not getting service at all. the lack of service is a massive problem. But he's also not helping himself. You know, sometimes he's not even looking like a fucking footballer. He's just losing the ball so cheaply. And it's like, look, we have problems when we lose the ball. We can see that. We give the ball away and we're in trouble. Just protect the fucking ball. You know, I don't want to single him out because, again, on a list of our problems, he's not high up on it whatsoever. But I'm just saying, he's your best player. You know, he's got to do more, and I know he's not getting service, but what he is getting, he's still got to do better for me.
I think he is a big problem. I'm going to end up sounding like Monty here, but in the past, let's be clear.
There, Monty's all over
so I need to be careful, don't I? But like in the past, I would go as far as saying Mo is just being Mo. Yeah, he's dipped a little bit, but he's never been great at looking after the ball. But it didn't matter, because when he lost it, we would just win it back straight away anyway and then give him it again. He would lose the ball as many times as he did yesterday, but we had so much of the ball and so many attacks that he'd then do 2 or 3 things and you'd almost just forgive him for losing the ball. Problem is, because the whole of the other team's not functioning. So now Mo looks like worse than he actually is. I think he's probably similar to how he's always been, maybe dipped slightly. But because the whole of the team's fallen off a cliff and we don't, recycle the ball, we don't win it back and everything, suddenly he looks like more of a problem than he is. That is what I would say about it.
Yeah, that's probably fair. When I'm saying like not a problem, I just mean we've got much bigger problems than that. But yeah. He is losing the ball too much. He's not giving us what we need from our best player, who's just got a massive new contract. You know, you do want more, but I mean, he's on his own at the moment. Gakpo's come in and he must just be wondering, what the fuck have I walked into here? But I mean, I don't want to make any kind of judgments on him at all. It's ridiculous to make any kinds of judgments on him. The only thing I'll say is he looks slower than I expected. He doesn't look like he's got much pace, does he? And from that regard, it's like, what are we looking for now in our like forwards? Because Diaz replacing Mane, I can kind of see that. There are some similarities there, but then Darwin coming in as that's Bobby's long-term replacement. Totally different type of player, and Gakpo's come in and he looks like a completely different type of player to everybody else. So I don't know what we're actually. You think we just replace like for like if we're playing the same way? I don't know how you can bring in players who are totally different to the ones who they're replacing, and then you're still playing the same way. Goes similar to Thiago coming in for Gini, totally different type of player. So you're going to have to play,
though, isn't it?
Yeah, so you've got to play like differently, and I don't really know what we're trying to do anymore.
Well, do you know the thing I would say to that, Dave, is I've got no problem. I mean, Brownie just touched on it there about evolving the team, evolving the tactics, evolving the personnel. I not only have I not got a problem with that, I want that. We need to do that. That's how we should be. But it's when I think there's some fundamentals that you look for in players that should never change. And Sadio was a warrior. And that going out of the team is a big miss for me. You want to go toe to toe with anyone. You want Sadio Mane has got to be one of the first names on your team sheet every single time. And that kind of warrior spirit, that kind of, let's trot all the cliches out here. But if you want to fight, Sadio's your man. Any kind of, and I don't mean like, out of control. I mean, tough, strong, hard, go for everything, close everything down, never stop. He'll go toe-to-toe with centre-halves. He'll play a physical game. We seem to have not recruited that, and that worries me. That's something that I think is a concern. You lose that from a team at this level, you've got problems. Teams with the aspirations that we've got have got to be able to play all kinds of ways. We saw it in the title season, the way we became a little bit more pragmatic. I think Brownie's mentioned that a couple of times on the pod recently. I think he's spot on about that. That more pragmatism in terms of our outlook. We held the ball a little bit more. We were a little bit more circumspect in terms of how we went forward. But we were also able to go toe-to-toe with teams, and we were also able to deal with teams going in hard on us. And, it's just some of those things that are a concern. Your point about Gakpo potentially could fall into the same category, albeit with a different characteristic. I mean, if he's not really pacey, why are we not signing players with pace? That should be an absolute prerequisite for us with forwards. That said, I haven't noticed the point you're making about him. I think he's looked, we've only seen him twice, I think he's looked okay. I just don't think he's had many opportunities to turn the afterburners on. But certainly, you can get in danger in situations like this of putting 2 and 2 together and coming up with 17. But when you look at the upheaval that's clearly going on the recruitment side of the club, you look at the fact that Ward keeps targeting players from Portugal or with a connection with Mendes, and you think, are we just being... Are we actually do, or is it Klopp and what Linders? Are you saying?
Yeah, none of us know, but there's a lot of talk that.
But either way, it's like there's a move away from what worked previously,
Definitely.
And now we're just getting players because it's expedient to get particular players. They sort of fit roughly what we want, or are we going for an absolute model that we know will work for us? You think about how Klopp has always talked about he wanted players with a certain mentality. That's why I was quite happy to sign Robbo, because Robbo's got something to prove. Same with Mo. I mean, you could go through the team, couldn't you? Lots of players like that. Have we now compromised that because Cody Gakpo's available? And I'm not saying that Gakpo hasn't got the mentality, you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to illustrate the point that I'm making. Are we now doing deals because they're doable rather than because they're the ones that we want? I mean, the flip side of that is that would suggest, well, why are we not doing business now? If we're now flexible in terms of how we'll apply our policy, then we should be doing deals now. And I suppose we're back into the realms of second guessing what's going on. But I just think it is a worry for me that if we don't see a coherent plan emerge from some of the new players that we're bringing in, you could put Carvalho into the mix as well. That's been said on the pod recently. What was he signed for? How does he fit? Where does he fit?
Can't even get on the pitch now when they're making
if we're just doing deals because these players are there, well, that's really not what's got us to the point that we're at now. What's got us to the point we're at now is a very, very, very coherent, rigorous, well-applied transfer strategy and a world-class genius.
Has it always been like that, though, Because I remember making the point a while ago that we seem to flip-flop on the players that we went for. Like this is like a good few years ago, but it was still under Klopp, I think, where we would go for the player and we wouldn't get him, and then you would assume, right, well, we're going to get him or that same type of player. But then in the summer, we'd sign a different position, and you would think, what's all that about? That doesn't kind of make sense. I just don't know whether we're just because. I mean, let's be honest. When results go like this, you start questioning everything, don't you? So I think sometimes you can start looking at things when really that's not the explanation for what's going on. And I do wonder that a little bit, because they have tried to renew the team, haven't they? When you go through it, signed Jota and Kanate, now Gakpo. There's Diaz. There's loads
of
midfield. They've done
just not midfield. They've done
because
everywhere
they probably
else.
thought that they wouldn't, but we've established the fact this is not just a midfield problem. This is a problem all over the pitch. So I don't think it is necessarily.
I think its roots were in the midfield issue. That we shouldn't just negate that point.
Yeah, no.
The roots were in the midfield issue this season.
That ain't going away. That's another concern, is that if we do suddenly get some forwards back and we start finding a little bit of form and everything, that midfield problem's still going to be there. Do you know what I mean? And that's still going to hamstring us until we actually can go and get somebody.
Okay, let me just jump in there, because this is something I think doesn't really get mentioned enough. People are talking about our midfield as though they're a load of bums. I'm not saying you two. I'm just saying in general. It's our midfield's shit. These players all need replacing. The issue isn't so much that. The issue is that for whatever reason, what we're asking them to do, they can't do it. It's not working, but that doesn't mean that we've got
it every week.
Yeah, but we're not even really doing it for a full game, are we? We see maybe 10-15 minutes in a game where we look good. Yeah. But that's not the point for me. Is that these players are not able to do what we're asking them to do. I think there's a big enough sample size now, for whatever the reason is, whether it's not enough pressing from the forwards is exposing the midfield, and then the slow midfield not winning the ball back's exposing the defence. Whatever the reasons are, fact is, how we're setting up to play, what we want to do, is not working, because the players we've got are no longer able to do what we're asking them to do. I think that's indisputable at the moment. So this is not a case that we've just got some League One midfield players who are just shit, not good enough. These are still, okay, they're getting on a bit, but they're still good players. Now, other teams are doing well, and they haven't got these flying machines in midfield who are sprinting all over the pitch and making tackles and covering all ground. Arsenal have got fucking Granit Xhaka in midfield. He's not mobile. United have got Christian Eriksen playing centre midfield. He's not a fucking ball winner. So they're just a couple of examples. So what I'm saying is, we're not picking these shit players, and that's what's hamstringing us. What's hamstringing us is they can't do what we're asking them to do. So why are we not just adapting to do something differently?
Yeah, agreed.
And you've got to, you make your suit from cutting your cloth, or whatever the expression is. Do you know what I mean? You've got to go, this is what we've got. We can't really do this with these players, but what we can do is we can do this. Most teams in the league would fucking love to have Thiago. Now Fabinho's a problem because he's fallen off a cliff. Hendo's a problem because he's not been great. But let's not forget, Hendo's in England's team in the World Cup. He was seen as like a vital component in that. He's not completely finished. He's not some bum. These are still good players, but you're asking them to do stuff that maybe they can't really do at this point. So change it. Play to the strengths rather than the weaknesses. And that's
kind of what I was alluding to about Klopp. That's kind of what I was alluding to about Klopp.
It's a coaching failing.
Klopp's got to make that decision, hasn't he? Now,
I'm all for that.
And
We've had that conversation so many times. The plan
I don't think we will.
Plan B thing.
I don't think we'll do it. I think he'll just carry on doing what we're doing, even though it's going to be shit, and then he'll address it in the summer. I don't think.
We did a little bit. We did a little bit in that in the season.
We did a lot in the COVID season. We dropped 15 yards deeper because we had Nat Phillips and players like that. So is he going to realise it's a similar thing, and those players can't do it anymore? And
is he not realised by now? Because it's not like this is something.
I don't think he did straight away in the COVID season. That might be a weakness of Klopp. That it just takes a bit too long.
To be fair, Brownie, what he said was that he couldn't put like Phillips and Williams in until they'd had enough time in training, to figure out what we wanted from them.
Could that explain yesterday? Maybe they're working on stuff in the background, and it's just a bit too soon for it to work.
But that's the point I was making before about how long it takes to drill players in the way in our tactics. It could explain it.
Well, no, because. Not yesterday, no, because when I'm saying about like doing stuff differently, it would be more about sitting deeper a little bit, having the midfielders maybe sitting in front of the defence, but we didn't. We were still like pushed, trying to win the ball high up the pitch, and it's not working. And then all of a sudden it's like bump, bump, bump. Teams who know what they're doing, like Brighton, for example, who definitely do know what they're doing, they're a really accomplished, well-coached team. They just pass through it, and then they're running at the defence. I mean, I thought Trent actually played okay yesterday, but that Matoma was just fucking running at him all the time, and he's left exposed against a left winger who's beaten most fullbacks he comes up against at the moment. So I didn't think Trent was particularly defended badly against him. There's a couple of times he got beaten and it didn't look good, but that's a winger on top of his game who's causing everybody problems who he faces, and Trent was just left completely isolated against him quite a few times. And we're not solid. We're just not solid. There's gaps everywhere. Teams are just running at us. And to me now, this is more a case of coaching than anything else. We're asking them to do what we've always done, and it's just not working. And we seem like too reluctant to change it. There's one game this season where we've sat in and played on the break, and it was Man City at home, and we won. Now, you can't do that against everybody. I accept that, because not everyone's going to have the ball as much as Man City are doing. But surely there's got to be a better way than what we're doing at the moment.
Could have done that yesterday when you think about the style of the
against
team
Brighton.
Yeah,
we could have done.
You could have done.
We absolutely could have done. And instead, we went in there, dick swinging, pressing them high up the pitch from the first minute. Because the first minute of that game, and Brighton were passing it round at the back, and I looked at our setup where we were, and it was mad. You see, Trent was pushed right up the pitch. Trent was in the forward line. Thiago was right on the edge of the box, pushed right up, and then you had the forwards as well. And I was like, "Fucking hell, we've got 5 players pressing them on the edge of the box here." But we weren't winning the ball. A couple of times we almost did it, and it looked all right. Yeah, this is maybe a little bit promising. But as soon as Brighton realised, what we were doing, they just played around it, and we couldn't get near them after that. But the point is, we set out in that game. We went there and we had 5 players pushed right up on the edge of their box when they were passing it out from the back. We didn't sit in and say, "Go on then, you can have the ball there. See if you can break us down." We did what we do all the time, regardless of system and formation or whatever. It was still the same principle.
I suppose what Klopp would say is that the counter pressing is who he is. You know what I mean? And he wants to exhaust every possibility of making that work before he's prepared to go. Before he's prepared to say, "No, that won't work. We're going to actually have to change our whole tactical outlook," which is effectively what dropping deep would be.
But it's also, Paul. That ship sailed 2 months ago.
I do wonder, though, in terms of the point Brownie was just making there clearly has been an attempt at a new formation in the last game yesterday. And I wonder if it is, he's thinking, this is the last roll of the dice this way, and I want to make this work. So we'll see.
They did look like a plan there, like what you both said. They're spot on. We had 4 or 5 pressing really high, and it was a case, and I know you can't say this because it didn't work, but if we'd have just nicked the ball there, and you were only talking just little fine details as to why we didn't nick it. They pass it around you and it looks terrible, but it's not like we were 5 yards off them. We were just getting there a split second too late. Whereby if you nick that ball, then suddenly you've got 5 people, and then they're going to be in trouble. But it was shit or bust basically, because then once they just go 1-2 and play a little triangle and get out, now there's a huge gap between those lads who are pressing and the back 4, and you're on the back foot, and you're just having to defend attack after attack after attack. We just kept being late.
But that's all season. We've been a split second too late on it.
I agree.
And Klopp's putting it down to us not winning challenges, which is, it's fair. It's true.
You can't win a challenge if you don't get there, though. I would say to Klopp, I won that. If you're not there,
he said that as well, though. To be fair, Brownie, he said the players are not winning challenges, and I think the reporter said to him, "Well, why is that? Is that the players' fault?" And he said, "No, it's my fault because I've got to get them in a position where they're in the position to win challenges, and they're not.
Yeah.
They're not there, but." How are you going to get Fabinho into positions when he's just like towing a caravan these days? I mean, Fabinho was never quick. I know we always talk about Fabinho, but this is something I was thinking this morning. Fabinho, remember we used to call him Inspector Gadget? It was like go Gadget legs, because his leg had come out and he'd win the ball that he had no right to win, and you couldn't get past him. Like, no matter what teams were doing, they couldn't get by Fabinho because he'd just stick a long leg out and he'd win the ball. When was the last time we've seen him do anything like that?
Not this season.
He just doesn't do it anymore. And
no.
Why that is, God only knows. Whether it's physical
He's fallen
or
as far
whether...
as maybe any player I've seen. I can't remember a player who's fallen as far as quickly.
He's 29. There's no like
it's just
legitimate reason
it's
for
mad.
that.
He always had the potential to do that, though. I think we've spoken about that before.
Well, he was never quick, was he?
He was never quick, and he didn't have recovery pace, and you always thought that if the opponent nicked the ball ahead of him, and we're talking really tight margins again here, he was always on the edge, whereby if he didn't know he got it, that's the point. But he only had to drop off 1% for everything else to then fall apart, because he's got no other kind of redeeming features. That is what it was. Maybe
that's indicative of how the system either really helps or really hinders players, how important the system is, because when the system is firing, it lifts players up. But when the system is misfiring and malfunctioning, then they can look absolutely horrendous. I mean, he looks like a fish out of water, doesn't he, at the moment? He looks awful, absolutely awful. You're looking at him now and you're thinking, how the hell did we even sign you? It's just such a fall from grace. It's quite shocking, really, I think. I genuinely can't think of a player who's fallen so far so quickly for us. I mean, maybe there are other clubs, but I can't think for us.
Yeah, he's gone from being a lighthouse to just being like some fucking random fella holding up his phone with the light on it. That's how much he's fallen off. Yeah, but it's something else that this is like stupid and that, but it pissed me off yesterday, and it's like completely random thing. But it bothered me seeing Klopp's getting completely fucking out-coached by a fella sat there wearing a fucking Slazenger coat. Did you get onto that? Italians are supposed to be like the epitome of fucking fashion and style. And then manager sat there wearing this fucking Slazenger coat. The rest of the staff are all wearing the night gear, the club gear. And for some reason, he sat there in a fucking Slazenger jacket. I'm like, is he just kitted himself out at Sports Direct? Is he wearing Lonsdale trainees? What's going on?
Maybe he's bringing the 1970s back. Maybe it's a high fashion statement.
I couldn't believe it.
We're just behind the curve.
I had to do a double take. I'm like, is he wearing a Slazenger jacket? What the fuck? What's going on there?
I had too many other things to be worrying about.
This was at the start of the game, though, before we were getting beat. That's when I first noticed it, so that's why it stuck in my memory. I'm like, fuck, that manager's just sat there wearing a Sports Direct Slazenger coat. It's just so weird. But anyway, something I was going to say then, and I've got distracted by the whole Slazenger thing now. Oh yeah, what I was going to say is, so we look like, and I'm not saying that we are, this is not a case of we need a managerial change, far from it, that's not what I'm saying, but we look like a team that under normal circumstances, you'd be like, okay, this team's at the end of the line. It needs a new manager to come in and fix it all. Now, say Klopp wasn't our manager right now, and let's just say, for example, Brendan was in charge, and okay, look, we need to change here. The person out there who you would be looking at to bring in and fix everything, there's nobody who you would take over Klopp. You'd be like, fucking hell, get that fella in, he's brilliant, he's perfect, that's exactly what we need. Well, we've got that guy, so we don't have to worry about that. But what I was thinking, like, this morning about this, Klopp actually needs to, like, take a step back here and pretend he's just arrived at the club. He's got to forget, like, all, like, these emotional attachments he's got to players and the history with them and everything that we've done together. He's got to forget all of that. He's got to just objectively come in, sit down and look at it as though he's just inheriting somebody else's squad. And he's got to go, okay, what do I need to do here to get this, turn this into my team, get this team playing like a Klopp team the way I want to play? And he's got to completely go back to what he did when he first came in. And he transformed it. It was because the way we look now is like we looked then. Like just a soft touch, no energy, just everything's just like miserable and shit. That's exactly how it was when he came in. And within one game, he transformed all of that. And what did he do? He came in and he just got everyone fucking running. We went to Tottenham and fucking ran ourselves into the ground. And everyone was like, fucking hell, that was good. That's something to build on. And then you get that momentum. Like, yeah, I mean, you think, like, over the time Klopp's been here, we've had some really, really, like, heartbreaking defeats, like big games that we've lost. Yesterday was far worse than any of that for me. And the reason for that, all of those games that we lost, it didn't matter in a sense, because you're like, we'll be back from that. We're on the right track. Things are good. We're on the up. We'll have better days in front of us. You can't really take anything from that yesterday other than this is completely fucked now and it needs, like, rebuilding. We need to go right back to basics and start again. And he's got to look at that and go, which players cannot do what I want us to do? And he's got to move them out and replace them. And he's got to forget everything that's gone before.
I would definitely agree with that in terms of intent, Dave, but there's two things about that practically at this point in the season, which I think make it very, very difficult. The first one is I'm sure that a lot of those players are already, they're worried that they're in the red zone.
No, I'm talking more for not this season, Paul. This season.
Oh, okay. Oh, well, next season, fine. Yeah, agreed. The other thing I would say is, at this moment, is to if you're talking about the summer, absolutely, got no argument at all. But to do it this now, I don't think the players have got the legs. The other thing as well is, in the middle of a storm like this, even if you're Jurgen Klopp, it's got to be so hard to be dispassionate and clear-eyed and to cut through all the noise. There is so much noise. And some of the noise will not just be external. He'll have internal noise in his own head. There'll be elements of him where he's thinking, have I got this wrong? Because the kind of fella he is, he'll definitely be looking at himself and taking some of it on board himself and saying, maybe I've made mistakes.
And so he should, because he has.
Yeah, no, of course he should. But that's something you can take for granted with people with football managers at any level, particularly at his level. A lot of them are very almost belligerent in terms of the way they look at things. That's not Klopp at all.
No, it's not.
But to be able to do that in a very, very clear-eyed way, I think is a challenge, a real challenge. And I think even if he is able to go back to basics, I'm not sure that the players might have the capacity at this stage to do it. Which brings us all the way back to the point we were making before, is I don't know how we go forward from here. The only thing I would say in this season, the only thing I would say is, I think if anyone can turn it round, Klopp can. And he has turned round a mad season before, and we're only halfway through. But it looks
the problem with what we're saying about Klopp there, though, is he builds, like, a lot of the things that he's great at and has been great at is built on trust and loyalty. And it's really difficult to then say to that person that you need to abandon that. You need to not be misty-eyed. You need to be a bit more pragmatic. Yeah. Because it goes against everything that's kind of in his being, and everything he's achieved in the game comes from that basis. So I think this is one of them things which is easy to say, but almost impossible to do.
I agree, Brownie, but if he doesn't do that, he's not going to be able to fix it.
And also your point about like ignoring that he's been here for years, like he goes on about common experiences all the time, doesn't he? And I don't think he can just shelve that and then suddenly start faking being fresh. I don't think he can do it. I don't think that's.
Well, just
doable.
On that point,
he's got to achieve it in a different way.
on that point you just made there, Brownie, I think that also ties into a point I wanted to make after the last pod, and I made on the forum, is that for me, the biggest mistake he's made is not chopping Ox and Keita earlier, just moving them on, taking the hit and bringing, last summer or the summer, Ox should have gone summer before last, Keita should have gone last summer. But that is kind of the antithesis of how Klopp thinks. That ties into Klopp's idea of loyalty and Klopp's idea of... And also Klopp's belief in developing people. Klopp, it's who he is. It's not even what he is, it's who he is. Klopp is someone who develops players and makes them better. He makes a personal commitment to develop them, and it works 95% of the time. It's worked incredibly throughout his career at Mainz, at Dortmund, and with us. So to be asking him to change his fundamental principles, and it's not just his way of working, it's his way of thinking. It's almost who he is as a human being. Yeah, so it gets really, really difficult to ask him to do something different to that. And I suppose for me, that's where you need a strong sporting director, and the one that we had has gone, to challenge that thinking and to say, listen, Jurgen, I know you're committed to these players, but look at the hard, cold facts here. Ox is never fit. Yes, I know he's a good boy. I know he's great in the dressing room. I know you like his attitude and his bubbliness around the place. And I know when he's fit, he's talented. We need to move him on. Yes, I know we paid all this for Keita, and I know that when he delivers, he can break the lines or whatever better than any other player, but he doesn't do it enough. He's missed a third of all the games. We need to move him on. You need somebody outside of the day-to-day with the team to have those challenging conversations with him and at least make him think. And I suspect that's not there at the moment either. There's no way Julian Ward will have the same relationship with Klopp that Michael Edwards had. And also, as Billy Hogan has taken over from Mike Gordon, I think, in much of the day-to-day. And I think Mike Gordon was capable of having frank conversations. I don't think Gordon would necessarily have been so specific around individual players, but he would certainly have challenged Jurgen in terms of his general thinking. And that's probably a factor as well, that he hasn't got those challenging external voices.
But you can't bring somebody in to do that either.
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do that.
But you can't bring someone in now over his head. It's just not... That would be massively problematic. So I don't know what the answer is there either.
Ferguson used to do it by evolving his coaching team.
Yeah,
he would
but
change
it also helps though, Paul. You're right, but it also helps that, Ferguson was a cunt. He was. Yeah. And Klopp isn't.
I don't want that. I'm not advocating that.
You're totally right. But you've got to have that, to do what he's done. Klopp was not going to do that. There's just no way he's going to do that. And I'm not even saying he should. No, I'm not saying he should.
That's a great point.
That's why I think he needs people outside.
Because to have the longevity, you have got to be a bit of a cunt, haven't you? Because think about what he did when his teams were seemingly at the highest ebb. He would pick out one of his key players and he'd bin them off, and everyone would wonder what's he doing. But he was starting to rebuild his team from a position of strength rather than what we're doing now, where it's weakness and suddenly we're scrambling about to try and fix things. That's the difference in those two people. I'm not talking football managers, but as people, and that's a great point.
He'd have probably got rid of Mo, and he'd definitely be getting rid of Fabinho right now.
He'd be making examples of people, and we'd all feel uncomfortable about it. Yeah. But ultimately, he probably then would build another team, and then another team, and then another team, and that's going to be something he will probably wrestle with himself behind the scenes.
But there isn't one way to do it, though, is there? I think we're looking at the position where we're at now, and I was saying this last season, this is new territory for Klopp, to be in a position where his loyalty to players is tested, where he has to evolve the team. I was saying that halfway through last season. He's never been in that position before, where he's got this array of talent at his disposal, and he needs to make decisions about who plays and when they play and how long he keeps them for. But just because Ferguson's way worked for him doesn't mean it's the only way. I think all managers need to have an element of ruthlessness. But Klopp has always done things his own way. Klopp has always had this. I think it's overstated, I think, the whole paternal approach that he has. But I think being a dad isn't just about having that warmth with your players or with your family. It's also about having discipline as well. And he clearly has both. And I think really that, next season will be more a test of how he continues to evolve things.
There's a difference between discipline and ruthlessness, though. I don't think he has that ruthlessness where he'll go and make an example of somebody.
And what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think you need to be ruthless in that to that degree to succeed. Well, clearly you don't, because he's done it. Look what he's achieved here.
Yeah, we're talking about longevity, though. So if you go back to the Dortmund situation, slightly different in the sense that he kept losing all his best players, so there's different circumstances. But it's a similar time frame where things start going wrong.
I suppose what I would say is, in football terms, Klopp has already achieved longevity. Ferguson was a freak. But, going into his 8th year, this is longevity in football terms, and he's done it at every club he's been at.
That is true. But I'm talking about rebuilding the team. Like, Klopp's team, when we think back to this golden era, we'll kind of be pointing at like 9 players with a constant. There's only slight changes.
True,
whereas with Ferguson, you've got like your Kanchelskis and your Cantona team, and then you've got a Rooney and a Tevez. It's completely different teams that have been built.
But over 21 years, 20 odd years though.
Yeah, and that's naturally going to happen. But for you to still be able to get through sticky spell, it's an achievement, isn't it? Listen, I don't want to give that prick any credit, because what Dave said about him is absolutely spot on. But in the context of what we're talking about and trying to do a rebuild, a lot of the time history gives you clues, so it can be useful to have a little look. And I'm not saying I want him to be like him at all.
I definitely agree with that. But if you're looking at history in terms of clues, the thing that I think we should be looking at, and it's the thing I don't think we've done, is Bob Paisley's old adage of 2 out, 2 in. And it doesn't necessarily need to be 2 big ones out, but there needs to be every season, you need to get a couple move on and a couple come in. You might bring a more senior player in, you might bring a younger player in, it might vary. I mean, and maybe these days you're 2 out, 2 in, you need to consider where in the season they come, whether it's the summer or whether it's in January. But there needs to be constant, low-level change in great teams.
We have done that,
I think
Paul.
we've been doing that.
Yeah, we have, but what we haven't done, we've done that. But when a big game comes around, the starting 11's like more or less the same as it was like 3-4 years before.
What I think knocked us was the COVID season, when they had this reaction and the ball changed. They were going to sell Origi. They didn't sell Origi. They were going to do, that's when you would have been, all things being equal, if they knew where money was available, other teams were spending and we could spend. I think they'd put things on pause for about 18 months. And I think that there's an element of playing catch up to that. But we need to be back to that again. And I'm not sure we're quite there yet.
But this is what I'm saying about Klopp's got to look at it as though he's just walking through the door now. That's not to say I want him to come in and go, right, you, and you're finished, I'm bombing you out. He's not going to do that.
I'm not sure.
But in his head, he's got to go, okay, I need to be moving him on. I'm not saying like you humiliate those players or you freeze them out or anything, but you've got to look at it like from a completely fresh start as to what you want to do. And even if you've bought that player not so long ago, if you think he doesn't really fit how I used to play, how I wanted to play, now we've tried to evolve, and whatever like they've tried to do this year, it's not working. And maybe we need to just go back to what we did, before we tried to evolve into this possession-based team, and that maybe we need to just go back, start again, and go back to what was good. Now, some of these players can't do that, and you've got to look at it. It's not a personal thing. I'm not saying he's got to fall out with these players and ostracize them, but he needs to know a clear plan. How are we going to play from now on? Because, some of the players, like, let's say, Harvey Elliott. I love Harvey Elliott. He's a brilliant little footballer. I think he's going to be a top player. Would we have signed Harvey Elliott to play in the team that we had in like Klopp's first 3-4 seasons here?
No, we wouldn't. No.
Would we have signed Carvalho to play in those kind of teams?
No.
They're small, not quick. They don't fit the profile of the type of players that we were signing and how our team played. These players, and it's not a knock on these players at all. I think they're both really talented players who are going to have great careers, maybe even have great careers with us, but not in that style of football. We're either going to have to go back to what we did or do something completely different. But we've got to be buying players to fit how we play. And I feel like we're just caught between 2 different eras now, if you like. You've got we're trying to play like the pressing style that we had, but we've also evolved into this possession team. And as it's turned out, we're shit at both now.
Well, do you know the thing? I can't remember whether it was Brownie or you, or it might have been both here, or Chris on one of the last couple of pods, or even Stu. You were drawing parallels with the transition under Wenger from one type of football to another.
I think it was Julian.
Was it Jules, right?
I think so, yeah.
So there was this move to become much more technical, and that in and of itself is not a bad thing. But it comes back to the point I was making before about you have fundamentals that you want in a player in terms of attitude, in terms of hunger, in terms of physicality. And for me, the point you were making there, Dave, about you don't need to alienate players, but you start to ease them out. I love Thiago. I think he's fantastic. But I would have no problem whatsoever if at 31 or 32, whatever he is this next summer, We just decided, well, he's had an opportunity there to go back to Germany or to go wherever. We're going to let him go. He's going to go with our blessing. We'll let him go for buttons as part of a complete rebuild. For me, when the players come in, I find it incredible that we seem to have gone from these physical, dominant players to these technical players, and this idea that you can't have both. Now, I realise that the game isn't awash with players like that, and I also think that's why we're targeting Bellingham, because Bellingham has got the physique, the aggression, but also the talent as well. But it's at the level that we're playing and the level that we're aiming for, we shouldn't compromise on that physicality, that controlled aggression, the strength, the power. I mean, power, the absence of power is glaring, I think, at the moment. Also pace. Those are things that should be prerequisites for all our players. That's the thing I love most about Klopp in the first few years, that it seemed like everybody was quick. Everyone he signed was quick. And I think if we're going to go back to basics, I want to see it in terms of the physicality of the players. Yes, get ones who are technical as well. And the good thing about some of the names we've been linked with recently, Bellingham, but also that the Argentinian lad, Caicedo, they do seem to have both. They seem to be clever, they seem to be physical, and they've got technique and touch as well. So
I think Thiago has both, though. Well. I'm going to repeat what probably Dave, you said to me on the last pod, I think, because I wasn't meaning to criticise Thiago when I made that point about transitioning to technical players, because I think he does do both. I don't think he's a problem at all.
Puts more tackles in than anyone else.
I think your point's more pertinent, Dave, in terms of Harvey and Carvalho. They're both really good players. I suppose in terms of
Thiago, I'm just thinking about how long can he do it for? How long can Thiago do it for? And do it week after week after week. You know what I mean? And certainly in terms of Dave was talking about Klopp in his mind, thinking about who the players are moving on. Well, I would imagine already, and this is the mad thing that he's having to use them, already mentally he's moving on mentally from Ox and from Keita and possibly also from Milner as well. But he's got to use them. I certainly think Thiago next season should be a player who you use more judiciously, and you use him not because you've got to use him, but you just think, well, I will use him this week. You're making actually a kind of strategic decision to use him rather than thinking, I've got to have him in the team. He must not be a must-start player next year. He must be a we want him to start player.
Yeah, but you've got to make sure with your recruitment, though, you have to make sure that the players you bring in are not clearly inferior to him, because then that makes its own decision, doesn't it?
And then you're also back to, with that big change, you're back to the whole point that we've made frequently about how long it takes to drill players in the way we work. So I think pretty much everyone recognises that we're looking for at least 2, but almost certainly 3 midfielders for next summer, for next season. But just because we go and sign 3 midfielders doesn't mean they can all walk in and deliver instantly what we want. So it's not easy, is it, at all?
No, it's not. It's far from easy because there's so many things that need addressing.
We sound as confused about the coaching staff probably are, don't we?
Yeah, and they are confused, and that's the big worry for me. Is it's just clear that they don't know how to fix it. Like, not this season. You know, maybe like they're looking at it and going, okay, everything that we need to do is going to have to be done next summer, and they've got a plan for that. But as of right now, they do not look like they've got any clue how to fix what's happening. And it's been like this all season. It's got worse. It's not got better. And the other thing is, whenever we've got like, Klopp always talks about like, oh, we don't have time for training with 2 games a week and all that. When we do have a week, we're shit. When we have a full week's training or a 2-week break or anything like that, we always come back and we're worse. That game, like after when we had the winter break, we come back from that, we were shit. When there's international breaks, we come back. Now, okay, international break's slightly different because players are all over the world. But when we have a free week where there's no midweek game and we're going like Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Saturday, whatever, do you see any difference? You go, oh yeah, you can see we've had a full week of training there. We were really flying at them there. We look so cohesive and organised. We actually look worse when we've had more time to prepare. And that is the bigger concern for me, which tells me that, Klopp saying like that he took responsibility for it because the players obviously didn't know what he wanted them to do. We had a full week to work on that. It's like a full week to work on how we were going to play, and they've come out and not had any idea on what they were doing. That is like just deeply worrying. It's either they're not getting the message across properly, or the players aren't really listening, or just don't really understand.
It takes ages to drill. We have been making that point. It takes a long time to understand that the intricacies of our press, doesn't it? I think that was the point we were making earlier. If he's changing the way we're going to play, you're never going to turn that round in a week. that's like half a season's worth of work. I mean,
yeah,
really,
but it's
that's
not specifically about yesterday, though, Paul. It's in general. When we come off a break and we've had a full week's training, we're usually shit. We're better when we're playing twice a week. I was referring
specifically about to the tactical stuff, really. I think, and he's clearly he's jumping from pillar to post, isn't he? It's quite obvious that he's trying different things. It's not the same thing that we're trying every week. It's either different personnel or it's different systems. We probably had about 4 or 5 different midfield setups this season. So getting that to embed is difficult. But it's we're almost back into perfect storm territory.
Everyone else has that as well, though, Paul. It's not everyone has to make changes. So I can't be like using that as mitigating circumstances.
But not everybody else goes from such stellar highs to these lows. It's not as the gaps are not as glaring. We are talking about one of the best teams in the world, and fallen off a cliff, and it's become this vicious circle of things getting worse.
Exactly.
Everybody else,
that's why it's so alarming.
But we don't see, they haven't got as far to fall. When other teams have variances, they haven't got as far to fall, and they're not playing at the same level. They haven't been playing at the same level for so many years with the same quality of players.
But that's exactly why it's so glaring.
But it's always been intricate, hasn't it? It has always been an intricate system. Even at our best, we've seen the intricacies are really clear. Look, you're right, Dave. You're absolutely right. I'm not disputing your point. I think I agreed with it as soon as you made it. It is worrying that he has a week with them and there's no discernible difference. But I just think it comes back to the point we've already made. I think we're floundering, and I don't think there's a quick fix.
That's true.
This season.
Brownie, you got anything you want to add?
No. Should we talk about Chelsea game? What we're going to do?
Yeah. We've got Wolves next.
I need to at least hope there's something else.
Jesus.
In front of us. Oh God, yeah.
I didn't even realise that, to be honest, on Tuesday as well. Yeah. Great.
And
there's only a couple of days in between. We might play a bit better.
I think we'll beat Wolves, and I can't even tell you why. There's nothing I can say that justifies me saying that we'll beat Wolves, but I do think we'll beat them.
I think this will be a role reversal. It'll probably be Wolves versus Liverpool reserves, won't it? It's probably what it's going to be. I can't see how we wheels the same people out.
We will have to make changes, no doubt about it. I think for me, if Darwin plays, I think we'll win. For the simple reason, I think we will get a bit more space to play in than we had at Anfield against them. I think,
Is he available, Dave?
I don't know. They said
trained?
No, they said he had a chance of playing against Brighton. They were hoping they hadn't ruled him out, but he needed to train on Friday, and he didn't train on Friday, so he was ruled out. Now, maybe he trains on Monday. I don't know. They've said that they don't think it's serious, but how many times have we heard that? Usually, don't think it's serious means fucking 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Can't trust any of that, can you? You have to discount anything we say about injured players and timescales.
Virgil was like, oh yeah, he just felt something, but we brought him off and, should be fine. And that's like, yeah, it's
6 weeks.
Yeah. So, you can't believe a word they say when it comes to injuries. Which... Is that Klopp lying, or is that Klopp going on what he's being told and he's being given incorrect information? Who knows? But
I think it's moved from one to the other. I think it used to be that, and now it's become they actually don't know.
I'd probably agree that initially,
judging by the way Klopp's making comments,
Klopp downplaying stuff, but now I think he's genuinely he's getting told something and then it's turning out to be much worse pretty much every time. But that just goes back to what we're saying. It's not right. Whatever's going on behind the scenes, fitness-wise, it's clearly not right. We're not running as much as we did, but we're picking up more injuries. So how'd you work that out? We get a lot of injuries in training as well. That's something else that needs to be looked at. It's not like it's players getting injured in games all the time. Some of it's happening in training. So, but going back to the Wolves game, if Darwin's back, I fancy us to win. If he's not, don't even want to watch it, to be honest. I've got to because it's my job. But... no Darwin, no party, really. I just don't want to watch us when he's not playing. I just think we're boring. And there's nothing to get excited about. So there's no point talking about Chelsea just yet. We need to see what happens in midweek against Wolves. But no idea why, but I do think we'll win that game. I know you don't, Brownie. What about you, Paul?
Unusually, I'm more on the pessimistic than optimistic side, simply because things were so diabolical against Wolves and also yesterday. Also, the doubts about what the team will be. I mean, I suppose if I'm looking for positives going into the game, I still want to see. I don't think is he even training Calvin Ramsey? Is he fit or not?
He got sent off for the under-21s the other day. So
does that mean he can't? Can he play when he's sent off in the under-21s? Does he get under-21 bans carry over into the first team?
I think I think it depends. I think if it's for violent conduct, then they do. So it used to be.
But otherwise, no.
Yeah, but even so, I think he would have missed yesterday's game, wouldn't he? So he should be able to play in the FA Cup.
I suppose the thing I'm looking for is shoots of recovery, and for me that would be players who've not played very often, bit part players coming in and taking their opportunity. You know, some of the young lads. Maybe does Carvalho get a game? Is it an opportunity for him to try and show he's got something?
It's weird how he's been bombed. It's so weird.
Very weird.
Because he scored against Man City. I know he wasn't good and he got subbed at half time, but he scored in that game and he's not been seen since. It's really weird.
So I just want to see. I want to see something. I want to see a spark of some kind. You know, I want to going into the game. I want to look at the team and think, oh, okay, that's got potential, and then ideally for that to come to fruition. But if I wouldn't know where to begin in terms of prediction, Dave. I really wouldn't. You know, normally I'm confident before every Liverpool game that we're going to get something out of the game at the very least. Even against the toughest opponents, I think we're going to get something. But right now, I just think we're incredibly unpredictable. Very, very hard to know. For me, probably at this stage, feel a little bit more confident about, and I know you don't want to cover it now because obviously we've got another game in between, but I probably at this stage feel a bit more confident about Chelsea coming to Anfield because it's Anfield and because it's Chelsea and the crowd will be up for it than I do about Tuesday night with Wolves. But it's a real tough one. Don't know. Really don't know. I want to see something. We need to see something, regardless of it being an FA Cup replay, regardless of whether it's a bit of a scratch team. We need to see something. We need to see a spark, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
What do you think now? Is it when Klopp's saying that world-class players don't seem to understand what he wants from them, then suddenly players who are inferior are going to know what that means? I know it's not that simple, but that's the concern for me. Plus, when you factor in, Wolves should have won that game against us. Yeah. You know, they got absolutely cheated out of that winning goal because we've seen like different clips and things since, haven't we? Which proved that should have been a goal. So I think their tails will be up. They'll be looking for revenge, and you know what that does to motivation sometimes. I can see us folding under that pressure, to be honest.
You've talked me out of it, yeah.
Honestly, that's
no, you've talked me out of it.
That point alone, bastard, but
about they're going to be well up for it. I can just see us going there and just finding ourselves like fucking 2-0 down in 10 minutes or something.
And we're away from home. We've been terrible away from home this season.
No, I take back everything I said. I agree with you now, Brownie. I do.
Yeah, your confidence is as flaky as the team.
Yeah, so. What a great...
Yeah.
What a mood, eh? What a mood. Terrible. What an awful place to be in.
Happy New Year,
coming out
everyone.
Of last season to be in this position now.
I know.
It's mad, isn't it, when you think how far we've fallen? It's
we
shocking,
haven't won
really.
This year yet, have we? The Villa game was December, wasn't it? We haven't won since Villa, have we?
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, still haven't won this year. And we had the most points in 2022 as well. Out of anyone.
Did we really?
Yeah, we had more points than anybody in 2022.
My God.
I'd love to see that on a graph, like, you know, doing a bit of trend analysis and all that.
Watch the fall off at the end.
Yeah.
But for Everton, we may well be have the least points in 2023.
Do you know if we lose on Tuesday, can we just do a podcast talking about Everton just to try and cheer everyone up? Might be an idea.
No, because we've got the derby coming soon, and I don't want to be like tempting fate ahead of that.
Oh yeah, that'll be.
When's the derby? How far away is that?
It's in February, isn't it?
It's not far off.
Yeah.
Is it before or after Madrid?
I don't know. Madrid's mid to late February, isn't it, like the 20th or something like that?
21st, Madrid. Everton is 13th, so a week before. It's on a Monday night.
Ugh.
So 4 weeks. 4 weeks from now.
I'm going to get bladdered for that, to be honest with you.
On a Monday night?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Like, it's more to do with I just don't want to be sober if we lose at Anfield to them with the crowd in, because the other one.
If you bladdered at the derby, you win either way, don't you? You either drown your sorrows or you're having the time of your life because you're back to the blues again.
Win-win.
Yeah, we'll have to get you on the pod after that one.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Well, let's just wrap it up now. I don't know. I just want to just forget about it now until Tuesday.
Yeah.
Nothing else to add, is there?
Don't think so.
No. Yeah. Oh, let's just end it. Yeah.
Let's just end it all.
What's it?
Everything. Footy. Just end the season. Just forget about footy. Let's just come back in the summer. All right, everyone. So if you're still listening by this point, and I wouldn't be if it was me, thanks for listening. We'll be back after Wolves.